The second question from our viewers is from Piotr Bol. He says, regarding your call for putting the country under the UN trusteeship, using the presidents of East Timor, he also says there is a difference between South Sudan, because South Sudan and East Timor, because South Sudan was an independent sovereign country when you call for the UN trusteeship on it, but East Timor was not independent when it was put under the UN trusteeship. So what is your comment on that?
Actually, the Timor-Leste Liberation Front had declared independence with the withdrawal of Portugal from East Timor, and therefore they were independent. Then Indonesia intervened, and they had a war that erupted. Then Indonesia withdrew, and East Timor became independent. But then a civil war erupted in East Timor, which led to the call by the region to put East Timor under a trusteeship for 2 years to stabilize East Timor and organize free and fair election. And indeed, it was a successful mission. And East Timor became stable, and they conducted elections which were won by the Liberation Front. And the country since then became stable, and they have been progressing very well. They have literally become out of news because there were no crises. But East Timor began to achieve rapid development in the region, and that is what is happening. The mission to stabilize the UN trusteeship as a mission to stabilize the country after the devastating civil war was very successful, and it only took 2 years. The crisis was over, and the elected government took over the reins of the country. And since then, they have been independent and developing peacefully. But let me also give to the viewer or the gentleman who asked the question, Piotr Bol, that Cambodia was an independent country, but because the regime of Pol Pot took the country through genocide, a very devastating genocide, and massive instability, and the country was terribly divided, and it collapsed. The United Nations established a trusteeship in Cambodia and returned the country to stability. They conducted the election, and the UN withdrew from there, and the country leadership and sovereignty was assumed by the Cambodians after their election, when they elected their government. So even in the case of a fully established country, independent and sovereign country like Cambodia, there was a trusteeship for a period of time. But even if we come back to Africa, there were different forms of international administration helping a country that is in difficulties, like Liberia or Sierra Leone. There were UN missions there, and supporting a transitional government that led to stabilization of the countries and almost like a rebooting of the two states in West Africa. And this resulted into rapid transition to stability and democracy in these two countries in Africa. So they were independent countries, but they were destroyed by war, like in the case of South Sudan. And therefore, the situation in South Sudan in 2015, when I called for a trusteeship, if we can think out of the box and critically and in the interest of the country, at that time, war was raging. The parties to the conflict, particularly the government or President Kiir, were not ready and not interested in peace. And therefore, they were delaying. And even in the end, when we came to sign the peace agreement, President Kiir refused to sign. Later on, he was pressured to sign. He signed. And immediately, the same day he signed that agreement, he started to campaign against that agreement, that it was not a good agreement. And this has become the problem of South Sudan, with instability continuing up to today. From 2015, we are in 2021. This is 6 years of missed opportunities, 6 years of displacement, 6 years of destruction in the country, 6 years of death in the country, 6 years of hunger, 6 years of South Sudanese being victims of floods without a government that can be there. What does the current government of South Sudan deliver to the citizen of South Sudan? Nothing. No education, no health, no any development, no humanitarian assistance, but even the government is obstructing humanitarian assistance, this type of government. Is this the sovereignty that we fought for? Definitely not. And therefore, the call to reboot the country, the call for us to establish a government of technocrats supported by the international community, even today as we speak, probably is the only solution that we have to stabilize the country and take the country through a short transitional period that will take us in transition to peace and to democracy. This is the noble goals behind the proposal. As a freedom fighter, nobody can blackmail me to say that I want South Sudan to be colonized, as some people would say, or that I want us to lose our sovereignty. No, actually, what we are concerned about is that we may actually lose the very state of South Sudan by collapsing into chaos and disorder as a result of the policies being pursued by the current government of President Kiir. And if South Sudan disintegrates into chaos, we will not have a state, we will not have sovereignty by that time. It will be a lawless territory. How much of South Sudan is outside the control of the government that claims to be exercising sovereignty today? How much of South Sudan? What is the sovereignty being used for? Is it serving the people? Is it bringing development? Is it bringing us back our dignity? Is it achieving our dream of a peaceful, free, and prosperous country? Definitely not. These are the issues. These are the issues of concern of a nationalist. And we should not be thinking of trusteeship as if we are losing our independence and sovereignty, but rather we are working to regain it. Because it is a matter of a short period, and then hand the power back to the people for the people to elect their government. And when the people elect their government, they assume control of the situation. That is the end of the presence of the international community, unless they are required by that government to continue assisting in one way or another. That is really the ideas behind the proposal I made in 2015 or 2014 initially, but then again I repeated it in 2015.